Alright, does Islam agree with science? And this is kind of a nice topic because it's a good topic to kind of cool down with a little bit. But it's also, it also talks about Islam in terms of what does it say about science. A lot of people think that Islam is trying to prove science or disprove science. No, the idea here is, first of all, we have to identify what the sources of knowledge are. Sources of knowledge aren't necessarily the scientific method. Sources of knowledge can include somebody just telling you information, you knowing that they're trustworthy. Sources of information can be deductive reasoning, rational thinking. These are all forms of knowledge that you can gain. If I have 3 balls in a bag, 2 blue and 1 red, and I take out 1 blue and 1 red, I know that there's another blue ball in there. That's knowledge. I didn't do a scientific experiment to do that. That's reasoning. The scientific method itself, however, which is I apply A to B, and I come out with C, basically. And I can repeat that and do it over again to develop actual sciences. That was actually put forth by Muslims. Muslims actually invented that method in the centuries between the 8th century and the 13th century, the golden age of Islam. And that's less than 2 centuries after the time of the Prophet himself. The Quran and science. The Quran does point out many scientific facts, but the Quran is not a book of science. It's not a science book. You can't go to study science and say, I'm going to study science from the Quran. The Quran is a book of signs. So it points at scientific facts. It says, look, you see that universe out there? We are expanding it. Isn't that evidence of creation? Well, we didn't know that the universe was being expanded. It was actually expanding until very recently. This is in the Quran 1400 years ago. The heavens and the earth were one cluster, and we split them apart. Sounds a lot like the Big Bang. We didn't know that 1400 years ago. That's in the Quran. We've made for water everything that is alive. We know that if we're looking for life on other planets, the first thing that everybody's looking for is water to find life. These are things in the Quran, and there's many, many examples that we can go on and on about, but the idea is that the Quran is not a science book, but it points at science and uses it as evidence. It's a sign. Look at creation. Do you think you came from randomness? You came out of nothing? Something had to bring you together. And then the history of science in Islam, I don't want to go too much into this. This is just a quick list of some of the fields Islam brought or grew during the Golden Age, back in the 8th century to the 13th century. Chemistry, mathematics, algebra. You wouldn't have algebra or calculus without the Arabs. Without the Muslims. Because actually a lot of those sciences were not Arab. But it was considered the Arab world. They use that in the terminology. They say the Arab world. It's the Muslim world. Some of the inventions, medical tools, surgical tools, flight, geographical maps, the timing of the lunar rotation around the Earth, anatomy. That was put forth by the Muslims. The camera. I'm being filmed right now. The camera, the word camera is actually an Arabic word. It's qamar. It's a small moon, meaning reflection of light. That's what the whole idea is. The word camera is actually an Arabic word. So every time you take a selfie, remember that without the Muslims you wouldn't have that. So, does Islam agree with science? Absolutely yes. All right, and that's the end of our